Hello and welcome back to the Fat Dad Fishing Show. My name's Rich Natoli, your regular host. Back again, talking as Paul from Great Bay Outfitters calls them. What do they call them? Striped carp? Yeah. So we're going to be talking striped bass. It is that time of year. The fall run has begun, and it's time to get out there on the water for those fish. If you like catching the striped carp, like so many people do. It is the big fish to go after right now, especially in advance of tog season. Don't worry, we are going to have plenty of tog content coming up starting next week. Um, Going to wait to announce that guest, but the week after that, then we're also going to have Frank Mahalik on. So we're going to be talking tog. We're going to be rolling in strong. And with that said, I'm going to announce tonight the trip that we're going to have, the Fat Dad Tog trip that we're trying to do every year. It's going to be on the Osprey out of New Jersey again. So if you're one of the Port Jefferson guys in New York, it is not going to be there. It's going to be down in Atlantic City. I believe it's at, got to double check. I believe it's at Camarans in Atlantic City. And we're going to do it on December 7th. That is a Sunday. So I thought about doing a Saturday, but they don't sail on Saturdays. So then I thought, well, let's do a Friday. And then I figured, you know what? Most people are not self-employed and may not want to take a vacation day that close to the holiday season. So we're going to go December 7th. It sails at 7 a.m., which means, you know how it is. You got to be there early. So get your spot on the boat. But you can go on, and I'm going to put it into the chat. I'm going to recommend that you go and go to the website, even if you just go right now as we're talking, ospreyfishingnewjersey.com. It's in the chat. And today is the first day that you can actually book a trip. So it's perfect timing. I've been communicating with them. They said that they were going to get it up and ready soon. And luckily it came out today. So I have my spot. And there are a couple other people I know that I talked to that I promised in advance, including my brother. They probably have their spots. But it would be great to get a lot of people out there on the boat this time. And we're going to try to get an improvement over the last time, which means more than just one lobster and a starfish and I don't know, a couple of other small things. I think those may have been the only fish that were actually caught that day. I believe that's actually the case, but tough day then, but it's going to be a great season already kicking off. But again, tog is not the topic today. We are going to be talking striped bass with Bayside Dave, and we're going to be focused on land-based. You know that Bayside Dave is, despite his name Bayside, he is mostly surf, although he's got plenty of experience on the sod banks and the shorelines, probably around docks and everything as well. That's kind of where my experience lies. And let's just roll into the sponsors real quick. So we have Great Bay Outfitters on Radio Road in Tuckerton. Anything kayak related that you need. If you're fishing saltwater kayak, it doesn't even have to be saltwater, but that's what I'm talking about right now. Old Town, Native. He also has other used kayaks in great condition that he sells, other brands, and he's got everything on there, including the Garmin motors. He's got everything, and it goes into the shop, and Paul just likes tricking them out and then selling them. So if you want a good setup, or if you want a unique custom setup, talk to Paul, talk to Great Bay. You're probably going to be able to find what you want and what's going to get you on the water and happy out there. Then we have Quad Stay Tuned with Kevin Driscoll. Number is in the, I'm going to add it to the descriptions here. It is on the descriptions in the podcast. I mentioned it right now, but I lost a monitor as this started up. So I do not have the number there, but it is in the intro for Toyota trucks. So if you have a Toyota truck, the Tacomas, even some Lexus models, 4Runners, these engine tunes are going to get you better mileage, better horsepower, better performance out of the engines. And if you have any of that gear hunting going on where it just doesn't seem to kind of slide and stay in the gear when you're on the highways, this will take care of it. So reach out to Kevin. He will set you up and he will let you know whether you should get it or you shouldn't. He's not going to just sell to everybody that calls. He's going to talk to you about it and make sure it's the right thing for you. Then the last thing is me with Real Estate Southeastern Pennsylvania. I am a realtor with Weichert Realtors Cornerstone, and I am out of the Bluebell office and the Collegeville office. So I cover quite a wide range. As a matter of fact, I had a closing today all the way out in Lancaster. Have another property that I'm involved with closing down near Atlantic City next week on Monday. So all over the place. So if there's anything I can help you with, just reach out. Number is 267-270-1145. And as I say that, I'm going to hit silent on my phone because people tend to just mess with me when I give the number. So with that said, I'm going to bring Bayside Dave on right now. Dave, good to see you. Let's jump right into this. What do you say?
Hey, of course, man. That's what I'm here for, bro.
Yeah, great. So we're going to talk a lot of striped bass. One thing that I do want to hit first before we dive in, because we're going to be talking everything from bait fishing to artificial surf fishing, sod banks, docks, whatever people want to talk about. Before we get into that, let's talk about look, we're all about local shops, local events. Let's talk about the annual local event that you're involved in right now that can get people on the water and having some fun.
Yeah, this is the 71st annual running of the LBI Surf Fishing Classic. It's generally has been known for many years as the Fall Derby. It started out as basically a striper derby, and over the years we've added other fish. I'm on the committee. I've been on the committee for about 5 years now. I run all their social media and I do their advertising, and I'm on the marketing subcommittee to get all the to help get the word out about this every year. It's usually a 9-week tournament that starts usually the first week in October, but this year we started it in September and added it up, beefed it up to 13 weeks. And we added fluke to the tournament, but that's over and done with. Fluke season is over,
that's done.
and we had a great turnout. But now we're running to November 30th. There's $25,000 in cash prizes. There is multiple species that you can target. We have striped bass, bluefish, kingfish. As long as they're around, tog had been added a few years ago. And that's running real strong now. With TOG, we have weekly prizes, and of course, the grand prize. We have prizes for women, seniors, and juniors, as do all the other species of fish that we pay. Have you target. Striped bass and bluefish have day prizes as well as weekly prizes and the grand prize. And then there's bonus prizes of different products that are awarded. For what do we have? Gift cards for the heaviest bass and caught on Saturdays, gift cards for heaviest bass caught on Sundays, given by Fisherman's Headquarters and Jingles Bait and Tackle. There's a custom rod from a local gentleman who makes rods, John Parzich. He's going to give one rod to the angler who caught the largest striped bass or bluefish. It seems to me like it's going to be a striped bass again this year because the bluefish really aren't that big right now.
No.
So he's going to make a custom rod for that person, which he does every year. We're very thankful for him to do that. And because of the slot, the 3-inch slot that we have for striped bass, it's really hard to compete with, the largest fish that you're allowed to weigh in is a 31-inch bass. So we opened up a section that we call the Surf Master Award, and that's for overslot bass that are caught, and those are scored by a catch, photo, release situation that you can look up the rules on our website lbisfc.com. So with this Surf Master Award, with these overslot fish, we decided rather than have we had a lot of turn-ins of fish, of course, over 31 inches and on up to the largest fish last year, which was 42-inch. You have 32, 33, 34, all those smaller fish being handled, mishandled, laid on rocks and sand, measured, sent in, even though there are larger fish already turned in. We felt that that's kind of not really good for the striped bass to allow people to do that and
right.
Just come in for the sake of, oh boy, I got my picture. So now we have it where it's only going to be the smallest fish that we're going to allow turned in is 38 inches. So that will help, with the mishandling of some of the smaller size fish.
Right.
As well, this is mostly a kill tournament. That people hate that word, but as far as the catch photo release, we do want to protect the species as much as we can. So yeah, anything 38 inches or bigger is going to be for the Surfmaster Award, and the winner of that gets a custom mount by Reinhardt Taxidermy. They provided the one last year for the guy who had a 42-inch bass, and this thing looked fantastic. They do so much beautiful detail on their mounts, and we're so proud to have them as a sponsor. And John Parzich is also going to make a rod for the winner of the Surfmaster Award, and his rods run up to $1,000. He does beautiful wraps. The guy does absolutely beautiful work. And we also have a local plug maker. I don't have the name in front of me. I'm sorry. Who donated 6 really nice looking poppers and swim baits that he custom made for the Derby. So that's going to be added to the Surfmaster Award, and probably a few other bonus prize awards that we have available from now to the end. And we have a guy that's making custom bucktails and custom teasers, to your specs if you catch the largest fish on a plug and all that. So yeah, there's a lot of good stuff that you can win. And even though this is, like I said, a 13-week tournament, and we have about 6 weeks left, yeah, you're thinking, oh, I don't want to compete with all these people, I can't get down there too much. But if you come down here for one day, one weekend, or a couple times, you have a chance of catching a big fish, getting a good day prize, getting a good weekly prize. And you catch something big enough, you might hold out to the grand prize. So no, you don't have to be here every day in this entire tournament to really compete. You just got to get down here once or twice and do some hardcore fishing and pull in some nice fish and possibly win some cash, man, and maybe even a couple of these good prizes that we're offering.
Yeah, it's funny. So I think Paul, it was Paul, put out on Facebook a picture of himself holding a striped bass with all the scribbles around it. And he just, how the people try to like black out the background, just saying, if you're in New Jersey, just so you know, this is not necessary anymore. They're all over. And it's true. And to that point, it may be a 13-week tournament, but the bigger fish are arriving now.
Yeah.
So if you want to get in, you haven't missed the biggest fish. They're still coming in.
Starting. It's just starting, man. And this is the fall run. It's actually a couple weeks later than it normally runs. We'll see bass. The initial size of the fish that first hit the run are usually the big ones. Big cows come down, the 40s and 50s. And that's your first wave of the run, and that usually starts around even like the first and second, could even be the third week in October. But usually, I mean, we've seen them, October 8th, October 10th, where we have those big 40s and 50s, and they're starting right now. The reports are coming in that they're starting right now. We don't see them on the beach yet, but we are very encouraged that we are going to see them soon, because they're making their run, and they've been out on the 1 to 3 mile line, and people are starting to see them come in near the inlets and stuff. So yeah, like Rich said, thanks for mentioning, in reference to our Derby here, you still got a chance to win some good cash and prizes. Get down to LBI, register at Surf City Bait and Tackle, Fisherman's Headquarters, or Jingles Bait and Tackle. It's a $40 entrance fee, $20 for kids under 18. And you get one of these cool hats. This is embroidered hat, sticker. There's some coupons that are available from some of our sponsors that you get with your sign up. And come on down. We got some good fishing down here coming up pretty soon, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll say this for our New York audience. I've been hearing left and right that the South Shore is on fire, and some complaints that they seem to have skipped the shore of Long Island. I don't know if that's true or not. I haven't gone, but I had a couple of guys that were pretty adamant that they're heading south because that's where the big ones are right now. They're still catching them right all up and down, but it didn't come in thick in the north, and they're saying, it seems like the main larger fish in the biomass have moved south. So you're looking there at Long Island, Raritan Bay, Raritan River, and spilling around Sandy Hook and coming down south. You're also seeing, I would say, down to about Ocean City, pretty consistent reports of larger I shouldn't say larger because everybody has their own definition of that, but overslot fish down through Ocean City, almost to Corson's in the backwaters. So if you're finding them back there, they are definitely going to be at least spaced out sporadically on the beaches. I have not heard anything great south of Corson Inlet. So Stephen Duda is asking anything in South Jersey yet. Depends on what you consider South Jersey. Some people think as soon as the New York accents stop, that's South Jersey. Some people say it's below AC, below Manasquan. I don't know, but I would say what I am hearing, and I am not tapped. Look, I'm not tapped into a billion people, but what I am hearing is you're really good and the run has started if you're especially Ocean City and north, so down to Corson and north, you're going to be able to go out, target striped bass right now from the beaches. It's a little spotty, as Dave just said. It's a little spotty, but you can catch them, you can find them. It's just not it's not what we think of when the bunker aren't pushing the beaches right now. They're not pushing the surf line all over the place like they are. You can just wait a half an hour and the next pod comes through. It's not happening. But large fish in the backwaters, definitely. James Flynn saying 38 inches from Sea Isle. So maybe we're starting
to see the same thing with those larger fish in the backwaters as well. Not as heavy as you said, down by Ocean City and stuff, but our inlets are really holding bass. They've been holding bass all summer, and that's typical down here. The Barnegat Inlet and the Little Egg Inlet on the south end of the island. We had a report last Wednesday or Tuesday. It was, we had a boat out at the tip of Holgate, which is the southern tip of Long Beach Island, in the Little Egg Inlet, where they had fished up to 40 inch, 42 inch fish that they were getting on topwater plugs in this rip that occurs down there coming out of that inlet. So, even though they might be not be on the beaches, if you go up on the Barnegat Inlet along that jetty there, wear your corkers, don't be an idiot, and watch as the water comes over the top. Be safe out there on them rocks. But I heard early morning and late afternoon into the evenings, bass are running along those rocks. So you can come join the Derby and go out there and catch, you work the inlets, because the Derby, it doesn't include any kind of boat fishing. It's all land based.
Right.
You can't go across off of Manahawkin and off those sod banks. You have to be land based on Long Beach Island. I mean, we have plenty of land based spots all along the bay. We had a weigh-in today of a 30-inch bass that a guy was caught off of a dock on the bay side of LBI this morning using a plug. It was a nice nearly 10-pound fish. So he's in like third or fourth right now with that fish. But it's not just the beaches. Inlets, back bays that you can get, or I call it the back bay. It's just the backside of the island in the bay. We have a lot of land-based spots here on LBI that you can fish those bays. Some of the channels run right up along the bulkheads, and there's some sod banks that we have. You just got to look at the maps, and there's free parking on all the streets. Just don't park anybody's driveway in. Along the whole island, there's no paid parking. It's just all side streets that run right up to the beach on every block on the entire length of the island, and it's the same thing along the bay. As long as you're parked legally by a curb, or just watch where the signs are at the end of the street. Do not park past this sign. You're right there. You just walk on. Or get your beach buggy passes and drive on. There's 5 townships that sell beach buggy passes on the island, and look into that. And if you want to drive on the beach here, you're more than welcome. It's all part of the game, man. As long as you're land based, the action's here.
Yeah. So let's talk right now. Let's start off with some spots and where you would be expecting to find them right now. Let's start with the beaches. what are the types of structure? And let's just make it clear, you're looking, there are some comments, by the way. I do want to mention there are some comments that I'm going to pull up on the screen in a little bit. They kind of are going to flow into what we're going over later. um, what are you looking for as far as the types of structure right now when you're hitting the beaches? What are you looking for on the water?
Well, the structure here on LBI is very similar for the whole run of the island. So whichever town or block that you fish, that you are choosing to fish, as you walk up the entrance ramp, just stand on the top and observe the waves and observe the water. We have basically sandbars that run about, 10 to 20, even 30 yards off the beach, that will run for a block or two sometimes and create a trough between the beach, between the actual beach that you're standing on and the sandbar that forms out there. Sandbars don't run solid. There's always openings that are created because the water needs a place to get back out. So a rip current will occur, even if it's not a strong rip current. But they run up the troughs and then they create an opening. So you have the sandbar that runs, and then it'll drop down into a hole that we call it, and that's the opening that the water makes its way back out after it crashes over the sandbar and through the trough and in. So basically, what you're looking for is where these sandbars are. You can find them by watching the waves crash. Of course, waves look all the same up and down as you're looking up and down, the blocks of the beach line. But the foam really gets created when it's crashing on the sandbars. And the waves crash harder and create like that foam that you see, that white suds that just gets running. That's your sandbar. The waves will be, some of the bigger surf, the waves will be dropping in where those holes are, but they'll be dropping in maybe a little closer, and they won't be creating all that white foam. And you can see that water stays dark. So that's deeper water. That's the hole. I like to target right where the end of those sandbars are, right where that big heavy foam is being created by the shallowness of the sandbar. Fish like to come into those areas of the beach. They like to run up those troughs because those waves are crashing hard, churning up the sand. There's all kinds of food that gets churned up out of the sand. You have the sand fleas, you have calico crabs. You'd be surprised how many of these big fish come into the surf looking for all those little pieces of food, all those little calicos and sand fleas and all that stuff. Also, you'll have a lot of bait fish that are running in looking for cover. So they see those sandbars. There's something I can hide behind. They're not going to stay in those big, deep holes between the sandbars. They're going to run in up to those troughs and try to protect themselves by hugging the sandbars. And that's where the big fish are looking for food, so that's what you're looking for in structure, especially on Long Beach Island. You're looking for those troughs. You're looking for the end of those sandbars where those fish come in by where those holes are formed. And that's where you want to throw your baits. That's where you want to throw your plugs. Bass love rough water, and the rougher the better, because they love all that action that gets churned up.
I'll also add in there, so not just for LBI, but anywhere that you're going. So the trough is important, and you don't have to fish a trough, but it's important to know where it is. And this is a really rookie thing to say, but some people haven't fished the surf, right? Or they've just done it dumb luck, just kind of walking and tossing as they're going. When you see the wave break, you get the foam and then it reforms and it breaks again. That's a trough. Now the depth, it could be different. It can vary, but it's a variance in the depth when it reforms and then it breaks again. If it just kind of rolls in foam the entire way, it's a steady shallow until it reforms, if it ever does reform. So that's where you're going to have a trough. And on other beaches, LBI, I don't think you have this at all, but places where at this time of year you can wait out a bit. One of the biggest mistakes that I see is people will go out, they'll walk out, waist, depending on what waders they have, they probably have chest waders. So they'll walk out and they will just toss out towards the second sandbar, because a lot of these have two sandbars. What Dave just said is really important. They like that hard crash of water. They like where it's all churned up. They love the current. So what you will often find is some of the better fishermen are fishing behind the guys that have waded out 40 yards, so that they can toss out further to the second bar, because the fish are actually pushed in behind the first bar and the first trough. So if
100%.
you have a trough and you walk out into it and it's waist deep and you know it gets up to be about knee deep, you're standing in the trough where the fish are. So
Pretty
you can
much.
actually often fish behind you,
Yeah.
and you can catch fish. So don't just think it's a distance game. You know, a lot of people, you know, the big thing like shark fishing. Oh, I'm going to use a drone. I'm going to use a potato gun setup. I'm going to launch that bait 200 yards. That's great. You don't need to do that in most cases. In many, I shouldn't say most, in many places, if you can read that structure, and you can catch a 40-inch bass or bigger in water that's ankle deep. Like you can see them sometimes breaking,
100%.
slicing the water as they're cutting through, because they will literally come up and bump your feet. So want to just mention that for those that aren't as experienced. You don't want to ignore behind you. LBI, you're not necessarily doing that. Asbury Park, you're probably up to your chin if you go out, 20 feet,
Yeah.
depending on where you are.
Yeah, I find the more northern beaches, you have more of a deep drop off right out off the beaches, and you might not have a trough with a sandbar.
Yeah.
So you'll have big schools of fish running right up to the beach.
Yes,
Beautiful.
and I actually found myself face down in one of those in a fall before. That was terrible. I got
Yeah.
my feet washed out from underneath me, but it was like it was probably a 30-degree angle. So that's pretty steep, right?
I've been there. I've been there all the way
Oh,
up to my shoulders.
yeah, and
Trying to
but
back my way out and whoop.
and you can't, because you're backing uphill and the water is still washing the sand out from underneath you. The guy next
Yeah.
to me is like, "You're all right?" I was like, "Yeah, help me."
Yeah, that's a live and learn thing right there for sure.
Yeah, but
Yeah, the
so
only time we'll like walk out to a bar out by LBI is if there's a general low water level and the tide goes out and you have a lower tide. A lot of times the troughs are too deep for us to walk out to the bars. And
yeah,
the bars really don't get exposed off LBI. Maybe they'll be shin deep if anything at a lower tide. But there are times here that, and it doesn't happen too much, where we have super low levels, and you can walk out to that sandbar and cast into that second trough, or cast over to where that hole is, and that's pretty successful. That could be pretty successful in targeting the bass when you don't have high water levels. But generally, as long our troughs are pretty deep, 6 to 8 feet minimum, and the holes can drop down to 12, 15 feet right off the beach. And as long as there's water, as long as there's at least 6 feet of water, you're going to have bass come in. I've caught so many fish basically 20 feet in front of me. And
yeah.
the largest fish I ever caught on LBI was basically 20 feet in front of me at low tide, middle of June, salted clam. You can't predict things like that.
Right.
But like you said, they run right up to your feet, man. You don't have to get out there.
So let's take this. Let's go to this question here. So Jeff Dario is asking. So let's talk about these holes that you're finding at the mouth of the trough and the rip, where the rip's going out. What are you throwing in those? And let's start off. Let's start off with bait fishing. Let's talk about bait first. And look, it's October 20th when we're recording this. So let's talk about what you're throwing you anticipate throwing to start off with over the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Well, if you could find bunker, please get some fresh bunker, cut it into chunks. Get your 6.0, 8.0 circle hooks, or even smaller. Basically the size circle hook depends on the size bait you're using, and you don't necessarily have to have huge, large baits with big hooks to catch big fish. Like I said, these fish come into the surf and they will eat any little old thing. Almost every fish that I've ever harvested off the beach, back when you were able to keep fish up to 40 inches, I've had 36, 38-inch bass with their stomachs full of sand fleas. So by all means, try to get bunker. Fresh bunker is tough to find right now. There are a lot of bait and tackle shops who have frozen bunker. They usually freeze them, vacuum seal them fresh when they get them in. So you're not doing too bad using the frozen bunker. I've caught plenty of bass using frozen bunker. Just cut it into chunks. Put it on a circle hook, depending on the size bait that you've cut, as far as what size circle hook you're going to use. And I love using bunker heads. You know,
Yeah.
you cut behind the spot that's behind the eye by the gill there. Leave a little meat on there. Leave all the guts on there. Just cut that off. Use like an 8/0 or a 9/0 circle hook. Cut it, hook it under the chin, come out through the top of the nose. That's going to stay on there solid. You can leave that out there for a half hour, 40 minutes. I change my other baits out, like my chunk baits. I'll change them out about every 20 minutes. You can also use clams, salted or fresh. Surf clams is a great bait to use, and all the fresh mullet that have been brought into the shops over the last couple weeks with the mullet run. You know, they haven't put in packages of 12. They froze them all. That's another good bait you can use. You don't necessarily have to use a mullet rig. You really can't use a mullet rig for striped bass because it doesn't have circle hooks on it. But you can cut those pieces of mullet, those mullets up into pieces and throw them on circle hooks and throw them out there and use them as bait. They work fantastic. I know people who've been catching with them. Just drop them. Basically, you don't have to cast out. Like I said, we don't have to cast over to England for these fish. You have a good trough there. You have about 20 or 30 yards of good water that fish are going to be swimming in. Just cast it out. Try to get it out near the bar. Where the tip of the bar is usually the highway that the fish come in, and they're going to see your baits there. But anywhere where that bar is, away from the last, break of the waves into that deep water there, I wouldn't necessarily go out in the middle of what we call the hole, which is the big deep hole of water that is formed between the tip of two sandbars, a southern run of sandbar, northern run of sandbar. You have that big hole that is formed. Fish aren't really zooming around in there. That's pretty deep. There's no real big waves churning up that sand down there to attract them to look for baits. They're coming into where those edges of those sandbars are and turning their way up into the troughs. So as long as you're fishing near that hole in those troughs, that's where you want to drop your baits. And cast out, let it drop down in there. Make sure, when a sinker drops down to the sand, it buries itself a little bit. That's going to hold your bait in place. A lot of people they put it in the rod holder, and then they start to crank in to try to tighten up their line, which is the right thing to do. But don't over tighten it and pull your sinker out of the sand, because then that's going to start drifting around. Just
biggest mistake. It's the biggest mistake people make when they're fishing sinkers in the surf.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a wind blowing and you got 30 yards of line out there before it hits the water, the wind is going to make a curve in your line, regardless of how tight it is. You don't have to straighten out your line. You just have to make it tight. And you do that by just pulling with your, just grab it with your fingers and pull it down as you're cranking. Don't crank it down with your reel. Pull it with your fingers and you'll feel it get tight. As soon as it's tight, done. Set your drag and wait for the hit. Like I said, even though it still has a nice big curve of it, because that's what the wind is going to do to it. And the water's doing that to the line as well. So no, you don't have to straighten out your line. Just make it tight.
Yeah.
Or you're going to pull your sinker out.
Well, exactly. And keep in mind, you're fishing circle hooks when you're fishing these baits. So all you need is an indication that something has picked it up. You're going to get that indication. And it's not that you have to set the hook instantly.
No,
now I do
suggest
reeling down on it quickly and not waiting, because you can still gut hook with circle hooks, and it happens all the time. But it's not like you have to get a quick set on it. It's not going to be there and gone. It's going to pick it up. It's going to eat it. And you're going to see that movement. You're going to feel that movement if you're holding the rod. Good point. And to your point about the trough, or not the trough, the hole, and fishing the middle of that, just go back, everybody, and think about why you wouldn't want to fish necessarily the center there. And it comes down to, there could be fish there. There could be great large fish in there, but the reason that they're in there is they're not feeding as actively, because that's not where most of the food is coming through that's easy for them to grab. They're going to want the easiest meals. So think about a rip current. They're going to be, most often sitting on the less strong current side of a rip. And they're going to be darting out into the rip and grabbing things as it's just kind of funneled to them. Now, they could do that out in the deep water, but it's not as, if they're out in the middle of the hole, Well, the water's moving quicker and there's more of a rip when it goes around a structure. Think about a bridge, right? So if you're fishing a bridge, and if you don't believe me, just think about this. If you're fishing a bridge and you're on a boat and you go between the spans and you're right in the middle, you could have a decent current. But as soon as you get right up close to that, the water actually accelerates as it goes around that structure, right? Because it's condensing all that water into that small space because the piling's taking it up. It's the same principle that makes an airplane fly, right? So it's going to increase the velocity as it goes around the edges there, and that's going to make it a more predictable feed. So think about that when you're looking for the structure. That's one of the things that you want to look at, and not just that the structure holds bait, but it also funnels bait really well. You're going to have the increased currents around there. You're going to have more turbulence around there, which is going to jostle the smaller things, make it an easier feed. So just keep that in mind. It's not that you can't catch big fish or any fish in those holes. It's just probably not the first place that you would want to look, or at least it's not the first place I would look.
No, you're exactly right, and that's what I was talking about with those. They love the rough. They love
Yep.
the waves crashing because that's churning up. And even of course, like I said, there's churning up the sand fleas and the calicos. But even if there's like schools of bait fish in there, that just messes them all up. That just screws up their swimming, and they become easily targeted because they're just they just got pounded, and they're they're a little out of sorts because of the pounded wave, and that makes it easy prey for them.
Yeah.
And, also, just make sure if you are bait fishing and you have your rod in a holder, loosen up your drag so it's easy to pull the line out without the current and the wind continually pulling your line out. Because if a big fish grabs a bait and you have your rod, your drag tightened up tight, just say goodbye to your rod.
Yeah, but that's entertaining for everybody else on the beach, Dave.
Yeah, exactly. And don't worry about the fact that, it's too loose, it's not going to set the hook. You're going to set the hook when you tighten up your drag. And always keep in mind, I always tighten up my drag almost completely locked when I cast, because I don't want to lose any of the power of the cast by a drag loosening up as I'm casting. So yeah, it's tight. All right. Bring it up to I leave the bail open as I'm walking up to the spike with my finger on the line so it doesn't get thousands of yards it gets pulled out with the wind. Just let it guide out through your fingers so you can keep control of the line. Put it up into the holder and drop it down. Close your bail. Now you tighten up your line, like I said, without pulling the sinker out of the bottom. And now do half turns with your drag setting. Half a turn, pulling the line, it's still tight. Half a turn, all right, I'm pulling it out, but it's still pretty tight. Another half turn, all right, that's pretty decent now. It still has some good tension to it. So I'll be able to fight the fish with this drag. That's your fighting setting right there. That's still too tight to be sitting in the rod holder in the spike, because like I said, a big fish grabs it, say goodbye to your rod. Now turn it a couple more times until you can feel it come out nice and easy. Count how many times you turn it to make it that easy. So in a panic, oh my God, I got a fish. I got to how many turns do I? The 2 turn. I did it twice over to the fighting setting that I wanted. Always have to keep in mind about how many turns you have to turn where you can, have that circle hook drag out and set into the corner of the fish's mouth. And you're still at a good setting where you can fight the fish without it being super tight that it's going to snap the line. You always have to keep that in mind. The better way to do it is to get a bait runner reel.
Steven Duda just put that in there. He's like, that's why he uses bait runners. Yep.
The bait runners are the best because after you cast out, set it in your holder, set the drag to your fighting drag that you would like, and then you flick the bait holder, and that loosens up the drag.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about, how many turns to get it back to where I want it. The bait holder does it, and the bait holder will snap back off and go back to your fitting setting as soon as you turn your reel, or you could just snap it by yourself. Yeah. When you turn the crank, that'll shut that right off. And I do use bait runner reels when I'm fishing with bait on the beach for sure. That's the best way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you're putting the rod down. When
Yeah,
I don't have one, I hold the rod the entire time. But
yeah,
if I'm going to put one down, I definitely want one. And it's funny. I initially started using the bait runners actually for live bait, but I found that on a boat, that's when I would use it. But I wanted it in the surf because of that very reason. Because I don't want to be that dude that's running down the sand as everyone's laughing and my rod skipping through the sand and getting
yeah.
all gummed up.
And then when you pick it up, it's so caked with sand you can't even crank it. So
Exactly. Yeah,
yeah,
you're done and you feel like an idiot. But look, with that said, it happens. It's
happens.
happened to me a lot in the past.
I chased a
Even
few.
I've actually done it, Dave, with bait runners. Yeah.
Oh
So
yeah,
I mean, it can still happen, but it's a very good tip for people if you have one or if you've never used one. If you're going to have a bait rod with you, specifically for surf fishing, like I have specific stuff that I will just use for surf fishing bait, and it's actually they're all of those are bait runners. I have two, all of them. I have two setups
yeah,
that I use, and
yeah.
they're both bait runners. I would
Same
say
here.
to Jeff Daddario, it is. I would say he's got a. You know what? We'll get to this later. It's about red drum. For the red drum coming through, I'll try to bring that back up later. Uh, yeah, let's stick to the striped bass for right now. All right, so we've got the bait kind of covered. What I think most people are going to want to hear about and talk about are the artificials, because that's what a lot of people are using. So rather than getting into necessarily a lot of talk about the rods and the reels where everybody has their own personal preferences, one of my favorite things is where you start pulling out lures. Scotty did this last week. I have mine all set and ready to go. So why don't we just start going back and forth and let's talk about this time of year. And I'm going to throw in some that I use not necessarily on the beach, because there are going to be some people that are fishing in the backwaters and the boats in the backwaters and just offshore. So I'll throw in some other variations as well. So why don't you start off? What do you got that you would say is the first artificial that you're going to bring?
First thing I throw is a bucktail.
Okay.
Bucktails really mimic small bait fish. Um, you're going to find your bass or whatever you're targeting generally down deeper in the water right away, away from the foam, away from the crash. They're kind of nosing around the sand, looking for those sand fleas popping up and all that stuff. Uh, Throw on a bucktail, and it doesn't have to be heavy. Honestly, half ounce, 3/4 ounce, up to an ounce is a good bucktail to start with. The problem with using heavy bucktails is you're just dragging in the sand, and then you
Right.
keep having to pop up and get it out of the sand. You want that thing to swim like a fish. Yeah, it's got some weight to it. It casts out there, it starts sinking down. But as soon as you start cranking it, that movement kind of starts planing it up because it's a lighter bucktail. Put some kind of enhancement on it. I like using these what do you call these
Twister tails.
twister tails. All right,
Yep.
I was trying to think of the brand, but yeah, whites, greens, white, reds. It doesn't really matter. The brighter the color, the darker the water, the brighter the color. Like a green. Those chartreuse colors are great in the darker water. More clear water, I use a white. I just threw the red on this one because this is what I had on last time.
All right.
I
Well, hold
love
on.
using white.
Hold on.
Most bait fish have white bellies, so a lot of times fish are below their bait fish and they're looking up at them, and they come up from below and they attack them. So whatever color fish are, grays and silvers and all that stuff, their bellies are white. So when you see a lot of the baits that people are throwing, they always say, you throw any color, but as long as it's white, because, like I said, bait fish have white bellies.
So
Um,
let me jump in here real quick. So I love this because you and I have a different perspective on this. So I will say this: I typically start for striped bass, for fluke, for most species. I start with a white. So this is a white with some metallic in there. So this is the smallest I'll go. It's 5.5 Z-Man, right? But you had mentioned the darker water. You're using the lighter colors, and that is the opposite of what I'm doing. So I'm using this. I don't know if my lighting is good or not, but you can see there's a lot of metal in there. There's a lot of silver and gold in this. This is also a Z-Man 5.5 diesel minnow. So again, this is the smallest that I'm using for a striped bass run. But I found that it gives as long as it's really dark compared to the water, it gives a really good sharp silhouette, I believe. And
Well,
I do really well with this, but
yeah, I mean,
I
just
do
want to jump.
start with the whites though.
Yeah, I just want to jump in by saying you are totally right. Because when I said dark water, I just meant like during the day, like the cloudier water, so, the water that's not as clear, easily to see through.
Yeah. See,
So,
I'm doing the same thing in that water that I'm doing at night. I'm going dark.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe I misspoke because I'm looking at chartreuse. I'm looking at some of the purples and some of the darker
Mhm.
stuff. To me, I was like, that's brighter. I misspoke. I mean, with
Yeah.
that,
Well, either way though, I mean, even if we're the opposite, I mean, there are things that you're going to use that I never catch fish on. And I would say they suck. Like, the famous thing from this show is Ed hates dart spins, right? So this right here, which this is great.
yeah,
Ed swears these suck. You can never catch anything on it.
yeah.
He would sit next to me and I would be bailing striped bass and he would not get a touch. And he's like, yeah, they don't work, knowing that they work because he's watching me reel them in. He would then take the same exact lure, put it on his line, and not catch anything. But then he'd be on something, and I couldn't get it to work too. So
Right.
it's very personal as to your fishing style, what works, and also I think confidence. Um,
Yeah, the confidence goes right down the line to your
Oh, it absolutely
your hook.
does. So I don't doubt that we're going to have some differences on this. But
Yeah.
back to the beginning, I do start with a white, even if in that dirty water, but I'm very quick to go to that really dark silhouette with the metallic in there because especially during the day, it'll pick up that sunlight that's in there and give little glints. But it has that really
I
sharp, I
You know
believe,
what?
a sharp profile.
I see what you're saying. Definitely with the metallic for sure. But like I was saying, that the chartreuse is also easily, for some reason, fish can see the chartreuse through that
Yep.
cloudy water.
Yep.
Nighttime is always dark because of the contrast to the lighter sky. Is that the sky is always lighter than the water, no matter how dark it is at night. So
Right.
yeah, the dark baits at night, but during the day, for some reason, I like this bright chartreuse in cloudy water. I always get hits really well with these. And yeah, so what I was saying was the first thing I start out with is, like I said, the bucktails, the NLBNs, uh, the uh, um, the lead heads that have like paddle tails on them. Anything that
Yep.
just gets down into the column of water, down low into the column of water, a couple feet off the bottom and swim. That's going to attract those fish that are swimming down there. My next thing that I'll transfer over to is just your basic SP minnows. These are like a kind of an upper water column swimming bait. They're thin. Here we are, a fully white swim bait, but like I said, the bellies are white, so they're going to see this. There are skinny fish like this swimming around, no, but from underneath, even a football shaped fish is only this thin. So when they look up, they just see this silhouette. So this silhouette really attracts fish. This particular lure, this isn't a SP minnow. This is a Yozuri hydro minnow. This is a
Yeah.
long casting lure, and this is my second go-to. This, from the bucktails and the NLBNs and all that. This is my next lure that I grab is this baby right here.
So I'm throwing out there, like I said, the bucktail with those diesel minnows on the small one. Like I'll use bigger ones. Like for example, the Z-Man. These are what, 7-inch? 7-inch. So this is a pearl scented jerk shads, and I'll put those on. They don't have to be scented. I just got those because of the size. But if I'm gonna go to a hard bait, I'm actually going to the mag darters.
Mags
Like
too,
this.
yep.
I love mag darters. I've got a couple of them here in different colors. you know, I get the metallic ones, again, for what I said, for when it's dirty water, but I really do prefer, I prefer the white. These things are great, and this is one of the only ones that I'm going to show today out of my lures that is still in service. A lot of these are retired at
Yeah,
this point because they're just beat up and, you know, rusted out. They've been through a few seasons, but
yeah.
I tend to
Well, I
keep my
like the mags
tackle.
as well. You know, the SPs and these type of lures that have these little spoons on the front of them. These give a tight little swim action to them. The
Yeah,
mags give a little bit more of a back and forth movement with the
it's more of a
mags. And
sweep. Yeah,
I love my mags too. I have one of these old ones that I just put new hooks on. I use this a lot in the surf. You know, I like the yellow ones. I'm a yellow boy
yeah,
with the mags, and that those are in my bags as well for sure. Those were apparently made for strong current, but you don't need strong current to use them. I think
yeah.
it's another lure that you know, as long as you work it properly and present it properly, it's going to swim the way you want it in calmer water. You're right. I do love the mags. I love the bigger movement that the mags make for sure.
Yeah. What are you using up for top water?
Tops, my favorite is the Tsunami Talking Popper. This is my go-to right here. I love this. This is the smaller one. They do make
Yeah.
bigger size. You don't necessarily need the back hook on here. Sometimes I'll just put a dress tail on it, but I do have the hook in the back every once in a while. They'll grab the back of the foot. This is my go-to topwater popper. This thing casts like a football, and it works really well. You don't have to shake your rod too hard. Just a little quick shake with your wrist as you reel it in. You're not killing your arm trying to get that thing moving. You know, I also love the these are the panic poppers. What is this again? I can't think of the name of it now. My it might be written on here. Let me see. Savage Gear. Here it is. Savage Gear.
Okay.
I love these Savage Gear poppers. These you need a little bit more work with your rod to get it moving, but these come with some really good heavy hooks on there. Any pencil I love, but yeah, the talking popper is my go-to. I love the way it casts. I love the way it works in the water. It switches back and forth real nice. Definitely my go-to is the.
It's got a nice rattle to it.
It has the nice, yep. And any noise that's made, you know, those fish hear that helps. You know, they do
Yeah.
sense it. You know, ears, noses. Fish don't have ears and noses; they have senses. You know,
Yeah.
they'll sense vibration. They'll sense sound.
So
They'll
let me
sense
show you
scent.
this one. Let me
Yeah.
show you this one. So this one is retired. Well, it doesn't need to be. Um, but the Super Spook, the Junior, this is great for backwaters, and you can catch big fish on this. So here it is for those that haven't seen it. But look at those front hooks. Can you see those?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
got that extra.
Look at it. Look at those things bent out. So
Oops.
two of the hooks are bent out on a 40+ inch. Actually, that one wasn't caught in the backwater. That was caught in the Raritan in the river. So backwater technically, but yeah, it was over 40 inches on this little Spook Junior. So I really do like these. The bigger ones are awesome, but you don't necessarily need them. So if you're in a more confined area, I would go with the Junior. If you're going to be out front, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't use the full size, something larger, because you're still going to be able to catch those 20-inch ones on those larger lures. They're still going to go after it because they're stupid. When they're feeding, they're stupid. They're like bluefish. They'll go after anything regardless of size. So definitely you have to mention the Spook in there. And I'm going to throw this out there and just ask you if you even use them, because this is the single lure that is the most made fun of in surf fishing for striped bass. And it's going to be, it's a meme every year. And here you go.
Diamond jig, baby.
Yeah, the diamond jigs. You
I
got
know someone who only fishes with diamond jigs for striped bass.
Yeah, so here's the A27.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, they work really well at the right time.
I tell you, bro, a buddy of mine, he's an older gentleman, and that's all he brings to the beach is diamond jigs. He won't bring anything else.
Now, do you bring them?
Yes, I do. I always have
Okay.
them with me.
Now,
I even
do
like
you use
these.
green?
What's that?
What
I like
color?
the green. I like the green tails. Yeah,
Okay.
green tail
Yep. Yeah.
and the white tails. I'll use even the red tail. But Hopkins is another great lure. This is an ancient. I mean, not this one, but these have been around forever.
Yeah.
They mimic fish very well. They plane up nice. They don't necessarily drag on the bottom as easily as a diamond jig does.
Yeah.
I generally would use these for bluefish, but I was targeting bluefish in the spring, and I was catching more striped bass than I was bluefish because they were in the trough.
Yeah.
Hopkins is definitely one of the things that are in my plug bag for sure. Hopkins lures, they're fantastic.
Right.
Bottles. You like the bottles? Calmer water,
Yeah.
deep calm water. Give these things a chug. They slam these things. This is the larger size. Got a rattle to it. I do so well with these for striped bass in the deep calm waters, in the northern beaches of us, from LBI. In the inlet this fall so far, I've been using the smaller one. We've had peanut bunker, and I've been using this smaller one, and I've caught a lot of bass this in September and August, using this smaller bottle. It's all scraped up, as you can see, hitting the rocks as I reel it in. I love these bottles. They just give a chug, and then they're kind of hanging out, and they give a chug, and they splash, and they hang out. And as soon as right after that splash is done, when that thing is paused, that's when they get slammed. And I love the bottles.
Yeah. And those I'm going to mention the smaller one that you just held up there.
Yeah,
So those are great. So I would put those as my number two for the backwaters along sod banks
yeah,
after the talking popper.
hell yes.
The talking popper is it's amazing. As Paul points out, it's also inexpensive compared to the others. So, but I actually rate it for performance at the top. I'm just able to work it really well. So that's my top one, but followed by those bottles. Those are definitely up on the list. Let me just throw a couple things out there for you. So Steven is saying he's never caught a striper on a diamond jig. Lots of blues, sea bass, cod. It's one of those things. It's kind of similar to the Hopkins jig. You can catch a ton of stuff on a diamond jig, but keep in mind what it's mimicking. And this was actually brought up right before he posted this by James Flynn. Those, in my mind, perform best during the sand eel run. So if you don't have a
100%.
lot of sand eels, you'll still be able to catch them, but that's not necessarily what they're keyed in on. And if you look at the profile of it's really, it really lends itself to the sand eel above and beyond all else. And anything else that it would mimic, it's really small because of the profile being so thin. There are some other ones that you can get that are bigger, but you're going to be tossing a lot more weight. So that might be it, Steven. You might want to just kind of consider when you're throwing it. If you have a sand eel bite, definitely I would go for it. People can make fun of me for it if they want, but it does work during a sand eel bite 100%. So I would certainly go to that.
Yeah,
What
and if you're, I'm sorry, go ahead, Rick.
No, go ahead.
No, if you have the sand eels coming into the surf, and you decide I'm going to use the diamond jig, put a teaser on about 18 inches or 2 feet above it. Put a sand eel teaser on it too,
Yeah.
because you'll have this working off the sand, popping up out of the sand, because that's what sand eels do. They'll come up, they'll come down, and they'll be targeting this. But a lot of times when you have that sand eel teaser above it, now you have two profiles in the water, and sometimes they don't want to go down to the sand. They'll hit that teaser. And I find they hit that teaser about 60 or 70% more than they'll hit the diamond. I'm not saying the diamond jig alone, if you're just going to throw it without a teaser, that you're not going to catch fish with it, because you will. But I always like to throw a teaser on with it if they're in the surf. Last fall, we were out front a few times. Buddies of mine take me out on their boats. Thank you very much, buddies. And last fall, if you guys remember, if you were fishing out front, there wasn't many big bait fish out there. It was all big clouds of sand eels, and bass weren't hitting anything but these.
Yeah.
And that's what we were doing. We were going out there about a half mile out, 3/4, even a mile and a half out, where we were marking fish. And we would just cast out behind the boat, let it drop to the bottom, and just start jigging them up. And they were slamming these things. And this is about the only thing that would work last year was the diamond jigs. So yeah, that's definitely something that you want to put in your bag when you go out, because you never know.
Yeah. Now, and there's one more comment from Joseph. What about metal lip swimmers? Do you use any?
Yes, I do. I love them in the inlets. I love them. I love them in strong currents. Metal lips. What I like to do, especially off the jetty and in the inlets, I like to use them when the current is running. You don't have to toss them out too far. Just let the current take it down and let it swim. You're not retrieving it. You're just letting the water current let it swim. And I just bring it the closer to the rocks I get, the more hits I get. I like the Danny, the larger size Danny right here.
Yeah.
This is all banged up from using it. Currents. It dips down off the surface a little bit more, so you're down probably about a foot or so. It really presents well when it's not up on this when if it was up on the surface, it doesn't present as well as it is when it's down a little bit, because I find in those inlets, you have striped bass and they're working the rocks, but they're down deep and they need something to attract them up. So I like the metal lip where it's down into the water column just a little bit. And when the current hits these metal lips here, these things swim real nice and hard. And you don't have to do a lot of retrieving with them. I let the current work them. And like I said, closer to the rocks, the more they get slammed. This is the big one. I was using smaller ones a few weeks ago, a little shorty, a little skinnier one, and they were getting hit pretty well because there's been smaller baits in the water, a lot of peanut bunker and stuff. And then we had the mullet run. I was using like a more of a silver and a gray color, smaller, skinnier one, and they work really well. I love them in the currents for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm out of the metal lips. I lost my last ones, and when I went to replace them, the two shops that I went to, they were like $40 each because they were customs. I was like, I'm not doing that because I'm gonna lose them. I just lost like 3 in like 2 trips.
That's a heartbreaker, especially when you spend some money on some expensive ones.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not going to drop $100 on 3 of them, and I'd never even heard of them. They were custom. They looked great, but I didn't know. I didn't know anything about them, so I was like, I'll wait. But
yeah, I tell you guys, you have a lot of custom plug makers out there. They make some really pretty plugs, and you can spend $60-$80 on plugs. But honestly, fish don't see those little, and they don't see every little scale and all that beautiful artwork that those guys do. And I don't want to go against any of these guys that make those beautiful lures, but as long as you're presenting it well, it doesn't have to be all fancy colored. We're all paint jobs on it and stuff like that. It has a good color to it, and it has a good it's made well and it swims well. That's going to attract the fish. That's going to trigger their instinct to hit that lure. So you don't have to spend all that money on those expensive lures.
You don't have to, but I will say that there are some custom, it's just truly gifted custom plug makers that, it's I mean,
well, I couldn't resist this one. This one looks exactly like a bunker.
Yeah,
I had to buy it. And I am using it, and I love it.
But to your point though, the flip side of that is, look at 2 of my top 5 favorite, just white with a spoon on the back.
That's all you need, and like you said,
white mag darter,
and you snap off a $60 lure.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah. Yeah. But if they're reputable and they work well, I would absolutely go for them. I do have a difficult time spending what some of those cost though. I mean, I'll just be honest with you. It's not that I don't have the money. It's just that I don't know. I don't trust myself to not lose stuff. And on top of that, here's probably the bigger thing. I don't trust myself to take care of it after.
Yeah.
Right. So here's an example. This one here, it's retired, and it's just retired because it's just so banged up and everything. But half of that is from throwing it in a tackle box and not taking care of it. So
we rinse our rods and our reels off when we come home in our boots and all that stuff. You really should rinse your lures, and I do the same thing. I bring them home. I rinse off all my stuff, and I take all the lures out of my bag. I lay them out on the table outside, and I spray them all
Ah,
down, get all the salt water, because your hooks and your snap rings are gonna rust if you leave the salt water on them.
well,
And
that's well, they'll
it's
rust anyway, even if it's not
yeah, but
salt like this one.
you can curtail that. Yeah, you
I
can
throw it
curtail
in the
that.
bottom of a bucket, Dave. And
Yeah, I know, I know,
if there's a little fresh water stuck in that bucket, it'll sit in that it'll
I
sit in there
know.
for 2 weeks. It's and it look, I'm gonna use it as an excuse, but there's no excuse for it. It's when you're driving 2 hours to get home after a long day, you just don't care.
Oh,
You just leave it in the bucket, and then
yeah.
when you get it the next day, like oftentimes if I keep a fish, I throw it on ice in a cooler and leave it overnight and clean it the next day because I'm so tired when I get home. So my fresh fish ain't as fresh as they could be.
I see Joe just said something about there's a difference between a diamond jig and an Ava.
Well, there are and actually, yeah.
And by the way,
So,
that's
so
Joe Kiley. That's my bucktail man that I was talking to you about.
okay, and actually, I was going to bring one of his comments up. He has some stuff that he can donate. So I think he's talking about the straight shanked hooks
Yeah,
versus the twister like you have. So this one's a straight, and yours has the twist.
has a twist to it. Yeah,
Yeah. So this is an A27 with it's got the straight shank on it.
yeah.
I think that's what he's referring to there. Yeah. So okay, so I think we've covered a good amount. We are over our hour. Is there anything that we missed that you want to put out there before we start doing the housekeeping at the end of the show?
Anything that we missed? I mean, as far as handling fish are concerned, that when you're on the beach, and you get a fish in, of course, you use the wave to help you reel it in and all that stuff to get it in, and don't muscle your fish in against a wave, because that can cause a snap off.
Yeah.
Allow the drag to pull the fish back out, allow the wave to bring it back in. But when you get it in the sand, don't drag it up. You get the smaller fish, just drag it up the sand to where I'm standing. That's going to wipe off all the slime layer that protects them. Especially if it's a fish that you're going to release, you just expose its skin and all that stuff to any kind of stuff that could infect them. And when you pick up a fish, especially the real big ones, try to get them horizontal as quickly as you can. Support the stomach, thumb in the jaw, or if you have a jaw clamp on, get the fish level. Don't hang it up by its jaw. That's not healthy for the fish, especially the big ones. The bigger the fish, the quicker you have to put it back in the water.
Yeah.
The little guys, you take them out, take a picture, here you go, dump them in, goodbye. The bigger fish, they produce a lot more chemical when they're in a panic. You're catching a fish, you're reeling it in, it's in a panic for its life. There's a lot of adrenaline and whatever chemicals that are flowing in their body. They're shocked by the time you pull them out of the water. When you pull them out of the water, that's even more of a shock to their system. Bigger fish, for some reason, don't revive as quickly as the smaller fish do. So when you get a big fish, you don't have to pass it around to all your friends and take a million pictures of it. Get that thing back in the water, revive it if you can, hold it by its lip, or if you have the jaw clamp on it, not by its tail, shooting it back and forth. That's not going to get the mouth open and the water flowing through its gills. Have the fish by its jaw, bring it through the water, make sure that thing gets revived, and then it'll kick off and hopefully continue to survive. But yeah, please keep in mind those big fish, they don't get revived as quickly as the small fish do.
Yeah, I just want to bring up one point. When you're releasing a fish, regardless of size, one thing that people do is you want to get the water flowing over the gills, and proper way to do it is to bring them forward. You could do a figure eight, something like that.
Exactly.
But what too many people do is they push it forward and they pull it backwards.
Not good.
And the gills don't work in reverse.
Nope.
So when you're dragging it backwards, you're killing the fish. So bring it forward. If you're in a kayak, hold it by the lip in your hand and just start pedaling or paddling and just get some water flowing over it. If you're in a boat, you typically the boats are the best for letting them go, because you just pop it into gear,
Exactly.
lean over and hold. You just hold it, and it's going to bite your hand, and then it's going to kick off strong. That's when
Yep.
you know. So in a kayak or in a boat, that's when you know. It's a little bit more difficult, especially for all of us overweight guys who are leaning down into the surf trying to release something, but you got to do it. You decided to catch it. If you're going to release it, do your best, I
Well,
think.
the wave will do it too. You hold
It
the
will.
fish as the wave comes in. That's just like dragging it through. You got that wave coming over the fish. You got the mouth open. It's gonna shoot through the gills.
Right.
In the rougher surf. That's why you want to wear waders, chest waders, because you're gonna get yourself wet, man. You don't want to.
And you're going to be leaning down. You're going to be leaning down. But yeah, it's just take a minute and do it properly. If you're going to do it, is what I say. With that said, somebody right now listening to this is probably pissed that we're pontificating about it. But if you're going to release a fish, release it alive. That's what I say.
Yeah, please.
And it's not that hard. Just don't drag them backwards. It's going to kill them.
And don't drag them up to your truck through the sand.
Right.
Pick the thing up as soon as you can. Get down in the water when the wave retreats. Pick the fish up. Hold it horizontal. Support the whole fish, especially the big ones. Pull out your hooks. Take your picture. Get that thing back in the water as quick as you can. And you don't have to take a picture of every fish. People know what fish look like.
Yes, I agree. All right. So thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. Let me do some housekeeping before we wrap this up.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on every time. Want to just remind everybody. Well, first, before I remind everybody about this, next week we are going to have, I will spell it out for you. Scotty's coming back on as a co-host. It's going to be Ms. Bebe is coming on. We're going to talk some TOG. So we're going to be making a hard shift and pivot over toward TOG. We will revisit striped bass, but we're not doing 3 weeks in a row on the striped carp. So she will be on. Mahalik will be on after that. We've got some really cool things planned coming up. So tune in. Make sure you share this out to anybody, if you would, that you think might be interested. And again, for those that missed it at the beginning or forgot, we have the TOG trip on the Osprey out of New Jersey, December 7th, Sunday. It's going to be a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun when we went out, even though we didn't catch really anything on the whole boat that time. That doesn't happen very often. So looking forward to seeing as many people as possible on that. But yeah, we're getting into it. We're getting into the fun season. Everyone thinks it's the summer, but the hardcore fishermen are just gearing up right now, and this is the season that I love to talk about. And we're going to be talking year round. So everyone, thanks again for tuning in. We'll be back next week. So until next week, until next episode, get out there, get on the water, and get some tight lines.